Let's take a look at ethics in business. Ethical failures can cause significant upheaval in organizations. Let's take a look. Unethical behavior is costly to society. It has long-term, negative consequences for organizations, including hurt reputation, legal fees, and fines. Sales declines, increasing cost of capital, market share deterioration, and network partner loss can also be the result of unethical corporate behavior. Some organizations have even gone out of business, and thousands of people has lost their jobs. The loss of public trust threatens the integrity of an organization. So for our purposes, ethics is the application of a set of values and principles in order to make the right or good choice. It is not a long leap to note that ethics also must include personal integrity and trust in the character and behavior of others. Integrity means being honest. Lying, cheating, and stealing are unethical. Lying has long been identified as a critical, unethical behavior. If you're not honest, the truth will eventually catch up to you. And when it does, you will lose the trust of people and hurt your relationships for a long time before you're able to earn trust back. You probably already realize that because of their personalities, some people have a higher level of ethics than others, as integrity is considered a personality trait. Unfortunately, a culture of lying and dishonesty is infecting American business and society as these behaviors have become more common and accepted. A second factor affecting ethical behavior is moral development, which refers to distinguishing right from wrong and choosing to do the right thing. At a first level, the pre-conventional level, a person chooses right and wrong behavior based on self-interest and the likely consequences of behavior, a reward or punishment. Those whose ethical reasoning has advanced to a second level, conventional level, seek to maintain expected standards and live up to the expectations of others. Those at the third level, the post-conventional level, make an effort to define moral principles for themselves, regardless of the leader's or the group's ethics. They do the right thing. We respond to incentives and can usually be manipulated to behave ethically or unethically if we find the right incentives. In addition to incentives, in certain situations, it would be tempting to be unethical, such as when you're negotiating. Most often, when people behave unethically, it's not because they have some type of character flaw or were born bad. When we do behave unethically, we often justify the behavior to protect our self-concept so we don't feel bad about ourselves. Here's some justifications. Well, everyone else does it. I did it for the good of others. I was only following orders. I'm not as bad as others, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone. The things we do repeatedly determine our character, an important reality of a discussion of ethics in an organization today. Understanding some of the common approaches will help you resolve ethical dilemmas that you will certainly face at work. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or don't do anything to anyone that you wouldn't want someone to do to you is the golden rule and can be applied in this conversation. Here's a 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all who are concerned? Will it build goodwill and a better relationship? And will it be beneficial to all those concerned? The stakeholders approach tries to create a win-win result for all stakeholders affected by the decision. You can't always create a win-win for everybody, but you can try. Research shows that decision-making without an ethical guide leads to less ethical choices. Using ethical guides at the point of making a decision keeps you honest. Each of these approaches should cue you to think about some concepts that we've previously discussed in these courses: trust, integrity, and consistency. Research shows that companies' leaders who have the trust of employees have lower turnover and higher revenue, profitability, and shareholder returns. Following a code of ethics is actually an ethical approach. Values are our basic concepts of good and bad, or right and wrong. Values come from our society and our culture. Principles are a basic application of our values. We apply principles to specific situations in order to come up with a set of actions that we consider to be ethical. Managerial support, and especially top management support, is absolutely critical to a successful code of ethics. Personal responsibility also refers to accountability for one's own actions, so we need to identify the consequences to an employee if they violate the code of ethics. The compliance factor can identify applicable laws or industry regulations that must be adhered to as part of a code of ethics. Management always has to take the lead in being ethical, or employees will not perform. Unfortunately, it's not always easy to do the right thing, and it's not always the obvious choice. People that we interact with continuously give us the opportunity to be unethical by providing us with personal advantages that help us but do not help the organization. Authority is the right to give orders, enforce obedience, make decisions, and commit resources towards completing organizational goals. Responsibility is the obligation to answer for something or to someone, the duty to carry out an assignment to a satisfactory conclusion. Accountability is the personal duty to someone else, a higher-level manager or the organization itself, to use organizational resources effectively to complete an assignment. Unethical behavior often has personal negative consequences based on this personal accountability for our actions, such as getting into trouble at work, being fired, or even going to jail. We constantly have the opportunity to make decisions that will benefit us as an individual, but do harm to the organization or our subordinates. What are some of the most common ethical issues that both managers and their organizations have to deal with on an ongoing basis? A bribe is a payment meant to cause someone to make decisions that may help a person or an organization, but do significant harm to other organizations or other stakeholders in the decision. Let's talk about corrupt payments to government officials. This type of payment is designed to allow the company to avoid scrutiny of their actions by government agencies or to facilitate a desired company action, such as building a new factory in an environmentally sensitive area. Employment and personnel issues like who to fire or hire or promote and changes in compensation and working conditions can be affected by managerial decisions, which in turn will affect productivity, absenteeism, and turnover in the organization. Dishonest marketing practices can ruin corporate reputations and even cause them to fail. Unethical practices on the part of many financial firms are thought to be the main cause of the massive recession that started in late 2007. Due to advancements in technology, the availability to gather and maintain large amounts of personnel data has become common in organizations. This means that employee and consumer privacy is critically important. Of course, all of the information that we've discussed does no good unless and until the manager makes the choice to do the right thing, make an ethical decision. Following these ethical approaches, including a code of ethics, does help us make ethical decisions. Corporate social responsibility is an umbrella term for exploring the responsibilities of businesses and its role in society. Corporate social responsibility has been in the news constantly for the past several years. The concept is based on the belief that companies have some responsibilities to society beyond making profits for shareholders. In other words, companies need to look at their effects on society to all corporate shareholders, not just their own shareholders. Must provide employees with safe working conditions and with adequate pay and benefits as an example. Further, they must think about their impacts to the near and far communities and how they will be socially responsible in that context. Instead, the question is, at what level of social responsibility should the business operate? Businesses do vary greatly in their social responsibility activities based on the overall level of social responsibility at which they decide to operate. Managers can choose to operate the business at one of three levels of social responsibility. The levels of corporate social responsibility are legal, ethical, or benevolent. Legal corporate social responsibility focuses on maximizing profits while obeying the law. It focuses on increasing sales and cutting costs to maximize returns for stockholders. Ethical corporate social responsibility focuses on profitability and doing what is right, just, and fair. Benevolent corporate social responsibility focuses on profitability and helping society through philanthropy. The appropriate level of corporate social responsibility to meet the business's and stakeholders' self-interest is not a quick and easy decision. Sustainability involves meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. It's the process of assessing how to design products that will take advantage of the current environmental situation and enhancing how well a company's products perform with renewable resources. Organizations use up resources in the course of their operation. Any resource that is used must be replenished or it disappears forever. A green company acts in a way that minimizes damage to the environment. With the current worldwide environmental problems, many new ventures have been created in this green management. Sustainable practices require a strong commitment by companies in order to create the necessary follow-through at all levels of the company. There is evidence that more than 3/4 of customers are concerned with sustainability, and that more of them today are willing to avoid doing business with companies that don't pay attention to their social responsibility and sustainability. If we do nothing, supplies in many global industries will eventually run out, and we'll no longer have the ability to recover them. To function effectively, individuals and organizations must be capable of adapting successfully across cultural boundaries. This means that as an organization expands beyond its original borders, employees need to learn to change their personal perceptions from a local focus towards a broader concept of society. Yet, the evidence shows that this is one of the most significant weaknesses of individuals who have graduated with a business degree but have little work experience. As we get larger and more complex, management in the organization has to change to adapt to the complexity by loosening up centralized authority so that things can get done in a reasonable time frame. Ultimately, in many industries at least, the company will consider international operations of some type to gain a competitive advantage over its competitors. International operations require us to rethink every major function of human resource management. This creates some issues for businesses operating in multiple countries. Different countries' cultures have different values and beliefs, and therefore will have different ethics as to what is considered ethical in one country may not be considered ethical in another. Whose ethical perception should be followed in situations in which values in one country conflict with another? The answer is found in following a code of ethics. Remember that this code is the document that is used to project the values and beliefs of the organization to their employees. Not every company culture will exactly match the culture of a country in which it's doing business. So, having an international ethics code is important in organizations doing business globally. We'll need to recruit people with a specific set of skills in these circumstances. We also have to make sure that some choices about what types of employees we're going to recruit are made from which countries. These choices are made by HR professionals and can determine the success or failure of our global organization. In international assignments, all of the skill sets can differ from what a manager or employee would typically learn in order to do their job. An American manager going into a high-power distance culture would need to different technical skills than normal. As we've noted in our conversations about global business, organizational skills can be significantly different due to the variance in laws, regulations, and business structures in different countries. Cultural values and beliefs are often unspoken and taken for granted. Even with a common language, accurate communication can be difficult. Let's take a look at some of the important information that the Big Five personality characteristics can provide us in terms of ability to adapt to different cultures. Some evidence shows that extroverts will have an easier time adjusting to a different culture. However, little evidence shows that extroverts are more effective in their work relationships. In most cases, people with high openness to experience will be able to adjust better to a foreign culture than those who are low on this scale. Conscientiousness apparently has little effect on a person's overall ability to tolerate international work assignments. Agreeable individuals also tend to adjust to a new culture well. Again, people who are higher in this trait are less likely to terminate their assignment early. Additionally, higher neuroticism is correlated with a higher likelihood of terminating the assignment early. To take a person's personality traits into account because they have a direct impact on their ability to do the job. Companies are now sourcing managerial and technical talent from offshore. Social media tools are one method that we're now using to reach these knowledge workers worldwide. Negotiating the assignment can be a bit more complex in an international recruiting and selection process. Taxes are one of the more complex parts of international assignments. Where will the employee pay taxes, in their home country or in the country where they're assigned? Relocation costs, including housing, can also be difficult when moving to certain locations. The point is that these issues must be negotiated up front. An expatriate is an employee who leaves their home country to go work in another country. Preparing employees for these assignments will primarily be a training process, and the biggest training issue will usually be cross-cultural training. Culture shock can occur when we move from one culture to another. Both language training and other communication training, like verbal, nonverbal, or symbolic, may be needed before sending an employee on assignment. The same adjustment will be necessary as an employee returns home because they've adapted to another culture and the ways of doing everyday life there. Repatriation generally should include a series of steps that need to occur in order to get an employee back to the home country work routine. If we want to keep high-quality managers and workers in our organization while asking them to work around the world, we need to compensate them fairly. But what is fair? Is it fair to take a manager from a high-cost country and send them to a location that has a lower cost of living, like the United States to China, and once there, lower their pay to match the local norm? Conversely, if we bring a manager from a low-cost economy to a higher-cost environment, we probably need to increase their pay to match the country or region in which they will be working. As you can see, compensation for a global workforce becomes pretty complex very quickly. Let's discuss some options for paying expatriates. The most common method to manage expatriate compensation is called the balance sheet approach. Split pay is a process in which the organization pays the individual partly in the home country currency and partly in the currency in their work location. In this option, the employee will receive compensation based on the host country's ordinary pay structures and then receive allowances to allow them to more closely match their standard of living in the home country. Other options for compensating employees on international assignments include a negotiation approach. In an environment in which workers are operating all over the world is a very difficult process.